All right, let's talk about GE Vernova. They just dropped a powerhouse third quarter report, and along with it, announced a massive strategic move that's all about the future of the electric grid. We're going to break it all down.
So here's how we'll walk through it. We'll start with the big picture from their fantastic quarter. Then we'll dive into how each of their three main businesses performed. After that, we'll unpack their huge new acquisition, look at the numbers driving this whole story, and wrap up with their outlook for the rest of the year.
And to really set the stage, just listen to this from their CEO, Scott Strozek. He's basically saying this isn't just one good quarter. He sees this as the very beginning of a huge long-term investment cycle in electricity. And he believes GE Vernova is perfectly positioned to ride that wave.
Okay, so first up, the headline news. The big takeaway is that GE Vernova absolutely crushed it in their third quarter for 2025. They beat expectations and are showing some really powerful momentum.
So what does crushing it look like? Well, orders were super strong, which means their backlog of future work is getting bigger. Revenue was up by double digits, and, maybe more importantly, they became more profitable. They also generated a ton of cash, and, as if that wasn't enough, they announced a massive, game-changing acquisition. And if you want just one number to understand the kind of demand they're seeing, check this out. Total orders jumped a massive 55% organically compared to last year. That's not a small increase. That is a signal that the market is booming. So where is all this growth coming from? Let's peel back the onion a little bit and look at how things break down across their three main business segments. Now, this table tells a really interesting story. You've got explosive growth over in electrification and super solid performance from their big power business. But look at wind. Yeah, revenue was down, but their profitability improved by over 10 percentage points. That's huge. It shows their turnaround plan is really working. Diving into the power segment, it was just a beast this quarter. Orders shot up 50%, and a lot of that came from their heavy-duty gas turbines. It just goes to show you, as we add more renewables, the demand for reliable, on-demand power to stabilize the grid is stronger than ever. Now, for the wind business, the story here is all about discipline. Revenue is down, which they expected, but the real news is how much better their profitability is. They're being more selective about the projects they take on, and it is clearly paying off on the bottom line. And then there's electrification. I mean, wow. This was the star of the show. Revenue jumped 32%, but get this. Orders more than doubled. Why? Because everyone from North America to the Middle East is scrambling to upgrade their electrical grids to handle things like data centers and renewable energy. And that incredible growth we just saw in electrification, well, that leads us directly to the biggest strategic move they made all quarter, a multi-billion-dollar bet to go all in on the grid. So you have to ask, right, with demand for grid infrastructure just going through the roof, how is GE Vernova going to make sure they don't just participate but actually dominate this market? Well, here's their answer. They're spending over $5 billion to buy the rest of Prolec GE. Now, this isn't some new company they just found. It's a joint venture they've been part of for almost 30 years, and it's a top supplier of the huge transformers that are basically the backbone of the grid. So think of Prolec GE as a maker of mission-critical equipment. They build the heavy-duty gear that manages voltage to move power around for everyone. City utilities, big industrial plants, and especially those incredibly power-hungry data centers. And let's be clear, they're not just buying a familiar partner. They are buying a really profitable, fast-growing business. Just look at these numbers. Prolec GE is on track to bring in $3 billion in revenue this year, with fantastic 25% profit margins, and that's expected to grow to over $1 billion in EBITDA by 2028. So the bottom line is, this move gives GE Vernova more scale, more control, and a lot more profit in what's already their fastest-growing business. It lets them serve that booming North American market way more effectively and capture all of that financial upside for themselves. Okay, let's zoom back out and look at a few of the key numbers that really tell the story for the entire company this quarter. You can really see the story right here in this chart. Just look at the jump from last year to this year, across the board. Orders are way up, revenue crossed that $10 billion mark for the quarter, and their backlog, which is their guaranteed pipeline of future work, now stands at an incredible $135 billion. But if there's one number that just jumps off the page from this quarter, it has to be this one. $14.6 billion in new orders. That is a massive signal of customer confidence and demand for their technology. And what's really great is they're turning all this activity into cold, hard cash.
They've already generated $1.9 billion in free cash flow this year. To put that into perspective, that's more than they made in all of 2024 combined.
So, after a quarter like that, what does the rest of the year look like? What are they telling investors to expect? Well, they're feeling pretty good. They're sticking by their full-year guidance on things like profit margins and cash flow, but with a twist. They now expect to hit the high end of their revenue target, and look at that last bullet point. They're actually raising their growth forecast for that booming electrification business. The momentum is even stronger than they thought. And that really leaves us with this final thought from the company itself. Despite this amazing quarter, a multi-billion-dollar acquisition, and a raised outlook, their message is clear. In their minds, this isn't the peak. This is just the starting line. So the real question now is, how much higher can they possibly climb?